Welcome to The Spotlight, the podcast where veterans and military spouses connect and share how their military experience has transformed their lives and their businesses. Here's your host, Bob Louthen.
Hey, this is your host, Bob Louthen, founder of the VeteranCrowd Network, the network that brings veterans and veteran-led businesses together with each other and the resources they need to prosper. And you are tuning into The Spotlight. Hey, welcome everybody. Once again, I have an opportunity to talk to and learn from another military spouse. My guest, Monica Fullerton, is the CEO and founder of Spousely. You know, we've had some other military spouse-led businesses on before, Liberty Source and Our Riveter, to name a few. Monica, welcome to the program. Thanks for stepping into the spotlight.
Yes. Hey, Bob. It's great to be here.
Hey, tell everybody what Spousely is.
Yeah, so Spousely is an online marketplace where you can shop both products and services, all created by military and first responder families. So I like to call it Etsy meets Angie's List, but with a focus on shopping for social good and supporting our nation's heroes.
That's good. How did all of this get started? I mean, we're going to go back and talk about the military spouse and all that kind of stuff. But when did you start this, and how did the idea pop into your head?
Yes, so I launched Spousely right before the pandemic. Yay, great timing. So early 2020. And honestly, it all stemmed from my own just frustration and inspiration from my fellow military spouses. And it's always kind of weird to say frustration and inspiration in the same sentence. But as you know, the military life is both rewarding and challenging, especially for spouses.
How many times have you moved around?
So we've been very lucky. We have only moved about, I think it's been like only 2 to 3 places for the TDY in there. We've been lucky based on what my husband does. We've been, in Vegas for about 8 years now. So
straight and, without moving. Oh, that's good.
It's incredible. And I always, say my heart goes out, especially to the spouses that are moving every 2 to 3 years. That is normally what the lifestyle looks like. But because we've had this stability, it has allowed me to personally grow and thrive in my own corporate career, which has led me into turning into entrepreneurship to create something that's going to help empower and inspire spouses to be the best version of themselves.
Let's go back to a second. You just mentioned a corporate career. What were you doing before you founded Spousely?
So I'm glad that you asked that, because that has been a big piece of what has shaped me into the person I am today. When we were stationed in San Antonio, I had just finished my master's and I started, looking around for jobs. I was really bummed because I went to school for broadcasting and communications. I had moved to South Florida with big dreams of, being a news anchor or finding a way to use the power of communication. But then once I started living the military life, I kind of had to put my own personal dreams on the side. I didn't think a career in broadcasting was going to be feasible for, possibly moving around every few years. So I ended up going in for an interview for a company that's in logistics. And I remember going into that interview and being like, what is logistics? I have no idea what that means, what this role is. But they pretty much stole me at the, talking to them and the community, the culture, and it was an amazing company. So I spent the past decade growing my career in logistics. And I was managing all of the Northwest as a regional executive in the full truckload department.
Oh, so you were the trucking business itself?
So it was a 3PL, which they were basically, a middleman of everything, but it was a great opportunity. I was working with all of the Fortune 500 companies. So I was basically, flying in, meeting with the CEOs and CFOs of these big companies. And I've always personally, have wanted to be an entrepreneur. So it was kind of cool to learn from the other side of the table and to now to be able to, be where I want to be personally.
So maybe you've had some stability. Did you move around when you were working for the logistics company, and were you able to maintain your job, or was I mean, your experience sounds a little bit different than the typical spouse who it runs into some employment challenges simply because the employer knows you're going to move in 2 or 3 years. Maybe I need to go with the other candidate.
And it's horrible, Bob. It boils my blood. The military spouse unemployment rate has been at 24% for nearly a decade. And that number only continues to rise, especially after the pandemic, because yes, it is hard to find a career doing something you truly love that can move around with this lifestyle. We never know what our life is going to look like. If you would have told me maybe, 10 years ago that I was going to be able to have stability in one place, I could have planned my career more accordingly to do something I was truly passionate about, but we just never know. So we have to prepare for that every 2 to 3 year move. And so I was lucky. I started working for them in San Antonio. I was very close with the owner, amazing guy, just very into family, supporting, his community. And he allowed me to be one of the only remote workers in the company. And so when we found out we were moving to Vegas, he basically said, I cannot lose you. You are not going anywhere. What can we do to figure out, how to make it work? Which I wish so many more companies would do that for our community, because that allowed me to not only have this remote career, but it allowed me to grow and turn into, being able to have that more of an executive role and in leadership, and not just something that, I was going to be stuck doing that wasn't where I needed to be making salary wise.
Monica, you also mentioned that you have a master's degree. I think another big problem is that military spouses are underemployed for the same reason. If they are employed, sometimes they have to accept the position that's not quite up to the challenges maybe they're prepared for.
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah. And that's something that I'm a huge advocate about is, don't just say you're hiring military spouses and then stick a spouse who has a master's degree and is well educated and has all of the skills and everything needed to perform in a 6-figure career. I am not okay with that. It's something I'm very vocal about, especially because I've been there. I've done that. I know that it is possible. So I always say I am proof that it can happen, and that if companies can adapt more to seeing past the challenges that we face, and really see, especially military spouses, for everything that they are, because let's face it, we're great at multitasking. We have the strength. We've are really good at being an innovator, and we bring a lot of unique skill sets to the table.
They're very adaptive people, taking a step back. So when you created Spousely, what was your mission and what was sort of going in through your mind? Obviously, there was something more than just being a retailer on the internet.
Yes. So I've personally always been inspired by others' talents, especially, those in our military community. I feel like there is just so much talent in our community alone that I wanted to be able to do something. I wanted to help create something that would showcase both their products and services to the world, where it's so much more than just your average online marketplace. It's truly providing our community with that flexibility and stability to do what you love while living a life on the go.
Okay. You decided you there's so much to unpack now. When did you discover or decide that maybe you were an entrepreneur yourself?
So like I mentioned before, I've always have had the entrepreneurial spirit. It's in my blood. I come from a family.
The lemonade stand when you were a kid or something of that nature?
Oh no, it was more like going to my friends' houses that were very talented, whether it was, making crafts like bracelets or anything like that, and being like, okay, we need to sell these. Like, how are we going to get these to all of our
already
friends?
Organizing the labor force and not doing it all yourself. That's
Correct.
lesson one, right? Great.
Yes, because I just feel like, I've personally have never, and everybody will say, no, Monica, that's not true, but I've never felt like I've just had like a natural calling to being creative when it comes to making things and, getting it out there, which is why I said I've always been inspired. I have always been the business mindset. I've always thought about, ways, even from a pen in college, how can I sell this pen to make everybody want to buy it? It's not
Did you
anything that,
advise Leonardo DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall Street when he said,
yes, that's a,
sell me this pen?
yes, that is an exact great example of that. And, I've learned that is my specialty because not everybody has the business mindset. And so when I've created the platform, I wanted to be able to not only help these businesses at all different stages, but also continue to find ways to be a part of their journey. Because at the end of the day, entrepreneurship is incredible, but it's also lonely. You're putting everything into it. You're putting yourself out there. You're not sure what to expect. Maybe you're not getting enough sales or you don't know how to market something. I kind of see myself as a built-in business bestie to everybody, just because, when you have that support, we can conquer anything.
The built-in business bestie. Okay.
Honor, duty, service. At the Veteran Crowd Network, we're focused on our next mission, bringing veterans, veteran-operated businesses, and veteran service organizations together with each other and the resources they need to prosper. That's why we are launching the Veteran Crowd Rewards Program, exclusively for our individual and corporate members. Now you can save on travel, restaurants, goods, and services from brands you trust online and at over 900,000 locations nationwide. Find out more today at VeteranCrowdNetwork.com. If you are a veteran-operated business, or a VSO, consider the connections, the network, the benefits, the engagement, and success of working with other veterans again. The Veteran Crowd Network, you paid a lot of dues to join this club.
Hey, you're listening to the Spotlight on the Veteran Crowd Network. My guest is Monica Fullerton, the founder and CEO of Spousely, Air Force spouse. This is interesting. So let's talk a little bit about Spousely itself. And I'll start off by saying is there one spouse out there in your network that really comes to mind that would be an interesting story for you to share?
Well, yes, I personally love getting to know all of our vendors and their stories. So it's always hard to just highlight one because everybody truly brings a unique story and skill set and just opportunity to the table. But I will say we do have a number of Gold Star spouses on our platform, and they are doing these businesses to truly have not only a creative outlet, but also to be able to provide something more. A lot of them are moms, they have kids, some are very young kids. And it just honestly gives me chills talking about it because that could happen to any of us. And at the end of the day, they have powered forward. They're a true inspiration. We have one vendor. Her name is Melissa, and she is a veteran herself, and she's also a Gold Star spouse. She has a son who was very young when his dad passed away, and she became a self-published author. And she wrote, a book. It took her years to kind of be able to, put her story out there, but she did it to hopefully help others. And I think that's the true power of a community as well as our spouse-like community.
Interesting. I'm sure there are a lot of very interesting stories. How did you go about assembling this group? How did you find these men and women, and what's the recruiting process?
Yes. So all of our vendors are approved military and first responder families. So that includes spouses, veterans, Gold Star families, all of the first responder community. And basically how it all started was I, came up with this idea. I was on a car ride with some military spouse friends to dinner. And I just remember being in the car being like, you're so talented. You're a photographer. You make coffee. You're a private investigator. Like literally in that car ride alone, there was just so much talent. And after that
Did
dinner,
these people even realize they could be entrepreneurs themselves?
well, they
You
do.
recognized it in them.
Yes. And I always like to see the best in people. And you know what? They always, we all don't necessarily see it in ourselves. And always the question is, how am I going to make it work? I don't know how long we're going to be here. I don't know how I'm going to build my business up. Where do I get started? And so, after that car ride, what I did is I basically came up with the idea really quickly, because I'm one of those people that, okay, if I have it, I'm going to write it down, I'm going to go for it. But first, I'm going to prove that it's something that is going to be viable. So I created a Facebook group called Spousely Support. Basically, what I did is I added anybody into it that was, military connected or a supporter. And I basically said, hey, I'm thinking about starting a marketplace. I want to bring everybody together. Would you be interested to either be a vendor or a customer? And within probably, I don't even know, a few weeks, we had almost 1,000 people in the group. And
Wow.
everybody was so excited. Everyone was like, I want to be a vendor. I want to support. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Something like this has been needed because, as you know, many people, especially on Facebook, are a part of so many different groups. And everybody's always asking, hey, do you know anybody that can create a baby blanket? Do you know anybody that can create patches for our squadron? Whatever it is. And, that gets lost, right? That gets lost in the social media world. So if now everybody knows to go to Spousely to look for a business to support, it makes it a one-stop shop. So that was kind of my proof of concept. So after I got that, I, got everything registered. I put everything in place, found a web developer here in Vegas, got everything created, developed all within 8 months. So I basically turned that idea into reality. Sorry, I'm like tongue twisted today. And I haven't looked back since.
What are the numbers? It seems to me that there are about, I believe there are about 800,000 military spouses. Is that number ballpark? Am I still right on that, or has that changed?
So the statistic that I like to share and that I stick with is there's over 12,000 military, not 12,000, 12 million, sorry, 12 million. 48% of that number are entrepreneurs or aspire to be or self-employed. And that's a huge number, which I need to look back on what the exact number is so I don't botch that. But it's just a huge community within itself, especially within the military spouse space.
Do you think there are some things about being a military spouse specifically that have helped you be better in an entrepreneur? I mean, we talked about multitasking and that sort of thing, but for you specifically, have you discovered some things about yourself and maybe your experience leading up to this that's helped you? And then we're going to talk about how scary it is to be an entrepreneur. But
yes. And I wanted to double check that because, like I said, my brain is in a million different places. It's 12 million military spouses. Out of that number, 48% of them are self-employed entrepreneurs.
so that's active duty and retired and so forth.
Correct. And then you open up the market to include veterans and their families, and that's easily over a 40 million, market alone just within our community.
I've seen numbers in terms of,
It's
connected to
high.
veterans. It's close as high as 70 million people in the United States have a direct connection. And so,
Yes.
it is, if you're not a veteran, you're connected to 3 or 4 other people directly and like I say, it's a big and tight community. So
Yes.
let's talk about the entrepreneurial journey. Okay. It's scary, isn't it?
Yes. And that's honestly, I'll be very real with you here, which is why my brain is so off. I have just, it's an amazing journey, but there are so many ups and downs. And I am recently kind of going through something that has just, put a damper in the learning process. But I like to say, every failure, find a way to turn it into, something that can push you forward. There's always going to be opportunities and people that just aren't a good fit. And it's always going with your gut.
Every opportunity, whatever success or failure from a dollars and cents standpoint, as long as you learn from it and can adapt, I think that's very important. I have a couple of sayings about being an entrepreneur. One is that, the good news is, what the boss is thinking, the bad news is, what the boss is thinking.
Yes.
That's
like
sort
that.
of the double-edged sword of entrepreneurship. The other thing is that and I'd love to hear your response to this, because a lot of people are thinking about leaving something that seems secure to become an entrepreneur. A friend of mine once described it as exchanging the illusion of security for the illusion of independence. And I'm wondering how that quote strikes you.
Well, I've got a great quote to go with that. So it's growth begins when comfort ends. And it kind of really goes hand in hand with that. So obviously, as we talked about, I left a very secure opportunity, an awesome corporate world position and, different things like that to start entrepreneurship. I knew I was letting go of the security, obviously, of a paycheck and just kind of having that security behind everything I've worked so hard for. But there's nothing better than to truly be able to do what you love. And I've never experienced that in my life in terms of my career, just because of the military lifestyle. So now I finally feel like I am right where I am supposed to be. It takes time. Great things take time. And, if you just continue pushing forward, you believe in yourself and not use it as just a tool, from a money standpoint. I'm a big believer when you do good, great things continue to happen. And I am definitely not powered by the money piece of what I'm building and when I'm going to actually be able to get that first paycheck from myself. It takes time. But just knowing that Spousely is so much more, it's an impact, piece of everything. That's where the reward is at.
What does the next year hold for you? What's on the agenda for Spousely?
Yes. So we are getting ready to bring on our first investors, getting ready to grow and scale. I was very, passionate about making sure we had a great foundation poured. Like I said, we've, continued to prove that this is something that is very much needed in this space, not only for our community, but for those looking to support our community. So the next year really looks like a lot of growth from both a vendor side as well as a customer side. And we've developed out other avenues off of Spousely, and that's the true beauty of the company. So we just launched Spousely U, which is powered by USAA Small Business Insurance. We have a podcast where we share our vendor stories, and it's called I'm Possible. Basically, it's how our vendors are turning the impossible into I'm possible. Obviously, the word itself says that.
I like that.
So, what we're seeing is that it's so much more than a marketplace. Like I said, everything directly circles back into this amazing, nice business model where it's putting funds in the pockets of our heroes.
That's fantastic. How do people get in touch with you on social media and the web?
Yes, so you can check us out at spousely.com. I know our name has a dash in it, but you can just go to spousely.com without the dash. You'll find us. We're big on Instagram. That's where we love sharing a lot of our vendors' stories and their products and their services, as well as LinkedIn.
We'll put links to all of the social media and websites for Spousely on the show notes. Monica Fullerton, we're out of time. It goes by quickly. It's amazing to me. Just great to have you on the program. Really appreciate you stepping into the spotlight.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, you've been listening to the Spotlight on the VeteranCrowd Network. Join us every week for great stories like Monica Fullerton's and Spousely's. Check them out in the show notes. Monica, I'll throw out an Army Bravo Zulu to you for today's performance, and that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to Spotlight by VeteranCrowd. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and uploads, please visit our website at VeteranCrowdNetwork.com. We'll see you next time.